Hi, I'm Greg Ninnis for interest.co.nz, and today I'm joined by Peter Thompson, who's Managing Director of Barfoot and Thompson, which is Auckland's largest real estate agency by far. What would your market share of Auckland be at the moment, Peter? I know it's very high.
We certainly sell more than one in every three properties, so we're around about 38 to 40% on any given 1 month.
Okay, so if anyone knows what's happening out there, it should be you. The big news over the last few weeks, of course, has been the plans announced by the Reserve Bank to change mortgage lending restrictions on investment properties bought in Auckland.
Right.
And then the government's followed that up with some tweaking to the rules around how overseas buyers have to have tax changes, essentially, and that people might be taxed on anything they sell within 2 years. A lot of this comes from the fact that people are blaming investors or overseas buyers for a lot of the price appreciation that we've seen in the last, particularly the last 12 months, I suppose. Do you think those two groups' impact on the market is as great as some people are suggesting?
No, certainly not. I think there is some truth into it, but I think this truth is sort of expanded quite considerably depending on which parties you talk to. I think some of the moves that both the Reserve Bank and government have put in place are going to be very effective, but it's actually not going to sort the main issue of what we're going through at the moment, and that's purely lack of supply.
Right, so supply and demand are always the key drivers, really.
Very much so.
Okay. So until we get increased supply coming through, either that or a drop-off in demand, we're not going to see any fall-off in prices or an increase in availability of houses.
That's dead right, and I can't see the fall-off in demand for some time yet. The number of people that are moving to Auckland, both from within New Zealand and from overseas, and it's not just the Asian countries that a lot refer to, but all over the world. Auckland is now seen to be a city of a place of attraction, and certainly as we've been recognised in the various criteria that we're 10th best city here and 9th or 10th best city in that other sort of area, people are realising that Auckland is on the map, and it's wonderful for the city.
Okay. Migration historically has gone through some very big cycles. We've seen these big peaks in it previously, and do you think there is a danger that it could turn around just as quickly and that could take the demand pressure off? Nothing's impossible. And certainly that's something that we're always conscious of, and I'm sure the banking institutions and government, both local and national, are always concerned with that. But I think when we go back, say 5 years ago, and looked at the statistics or the projection that certainly Auckland City gave, the numbers that they gave at that time have been well exceeded already. Right.
And that is starting to put a pressure on such things as services like roading, sewage, or the reticulation, all those sort of things. It is a concern. We can keep building houses, but you've got to have the facilities to go with it.
Yeah, I guess governments like the economic benefits that come through migration and higher population growth, they're not so keen to spend the money that's necessary to support that necessarily, I suppose. And it takes longer to happen. Migration, you can turn up very quickly.
I think certainly both local and national governments are wanting to spend, to do those things, but I think it's the bureaucracy you've got to go through before they can actually proceed, and the consultation. And a lot of that is needed, but the time delays means the costs keep going up, as we're seeing in the building world.
All right. One of the things that I just, looking at your figures that you put on your website today, where it breaks it down a little bit with the regional sort of sales around Auckland, was where we look at areas like Franklin and Manukau, for example, and up in Rodney, we maybe haven't seen the big growth there in the number of sales that you might expect, because they tend to be where the cheaper homes are.
Very much so, and that's partly where the LV restriction has certainly most probably had a major impact with some of the first home buyers that can't afford to get in the inner city, and has had an impact. And that would be one change that I sort of indicated when the announcements came out that I would have liked to seen relaxed. I would have liked to seen properties under 500,000 actually have the 10% LV ratio waived totally,
right.
and that would have had a major impact not just in Auckland but certainly right through the whole of the country. And that's what's needed. Auckland is strong at the moment, but real estate throughout the rest of the country is still going through some hard times, and it does tend to be properties under 500,000.
Okay, the restriction will be eased up for new homes, though. Are you hopeful that might see some increase in development of new properties out in those areas?
Very much so, and already just going to a Housing New Zealand function last night, certainly in South Auckland there's a lot of projects that are well underway. The houses haven't been built as yet, but the emphasis is on low-cost housing mixed with some quality housing, and trying to create an environment that is going to be better for all occupants, both those that haven't got the ability to pay too much, but also to allow them to get into a market and buy a property.
Okay. One of the trends that was apparent in the last building consent figures that come out is that we'd seen big growth in apartment consents in Auckland. What's your feeling on apartments now? Are they being accepted as mainstream? Are more people interested in moving into apartments and buying them?
Yeah, certainly. What we're seeing is, and I think we've got to go right back to the unitary plan where the Mayor said that, for Auckland to succeed, we have to go both up and out. And I think that's really where the apartments is coming from. And certainly, apartments that are, say, 3 or 4 stories high, I think with some good spacious balconies, are becoming just as popular as, say, some 2 or 3 bedroom houses. A lot of the people these days are working 6 days a week, and on their 7th day they don't want to be worrying about lawns, etc. So it will change the different type of lifestyle. Notwithstanding that, certainly the 3 bedroom on a good backyard is still the most preferred property.
It's still the dream, isn't it?
But I think what we're seeing the age of people getting married, delayed till sort of early 30s, whereas you go back 20 years ago, it used to be early 20s.
Yeah.
So lifestyles have changed, and so will the requirements of the people that are buying property.
Okay. If we could just go back then to the new rules that are coming in around buying investment properties, obviously these affect Auckland. The investment ones only affect Auckland, and this is where your business is, your Auckland and Northland.
Right.
I see in the Reserve Bank paper it put out the other day, it said it thought that it could affect the volume of sales by about 8%. Do you think it could bite like that into the number of transactions that are happening?
Well, we've got to be honest. We haven't actually seen the finalised wording of what's going to apply to. Right. We're hearing what they're saying, but until we actually see the final wording, it's hard to make a prediction like that. Right. Certainly, I'm not sure at the moment. As I say, it is a supply issue. There are a lot of people moving to Auckland, and everyone's got to have a roof over their head. Yeah. At some stage, yes, it will have an impact, but just when that is, that would be the $1 million question.
All right, and of course they don't come until October. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Have you had any sense from the troops on the ground that there might be investors out there getting deals done now to avoid these new rules coming in?
Well, again, it will still come in. I'm sure that the 2 years will apply from when they last purchased. Whether it's 2 years, 4 years, for the long-term investor, it won't affect them at all. And the majority of people are long-term. For those that are looking for a quick dollar, yes, there will be an impact, but they just have to work around those impacts, just like any business does with day-to-day business.
Okay. Finally then, Barfoot and Thompson, of course, aren't just in the business of selling properties. You're also big property managers as well, with a big rental portfolio that you look after. What are the trends there? How hard is it now for people to be finding a place to live in when they need one to rent?
Yeah, it's just like housing. It is becoming harder to find a property rent, but it's quite seasonal. Just like sales are seasonal, renting is seasonal, and certainly at the beginning of the year, We get a very big uptake of new tenants coming in, that people moving to Auckland for the universities, for work, etc. They tend to change before going to school. And then for some known reason, June, July is always another big period, whether people are taking 6-month leases or whatever. So it's a matter of just keeping an eye on the websites and, you know, just make sure you present yourself well when you're going to a property as a tenant. You know, if you're going to go a big group of university students with dogs and that sort of thing, you're unlikely to be looked at favourably over a husband, wife, or a family wanting, because that's what the landlords choose.
Okay, very good. Well, look, thanks for joining us today on interest.co.nz,
A pleasure.
Peter.